Time for the Royal Roundup now. Lots going on. And we have the august company of Talk Radio's royal correspondent Rupert Bell to pilot us through these choppy royal waters. Hello, Rupert. Good to have you on.
Good evening, Vanessa. Yes, more stuff to ruminate and cogitate on, as the royals never fail to disappoint us.
Never. They never leave us hanging, Rupert. There's always something going on. Shall we start where we might wish to finish, but let's start there anyway, with Prince Andrew and the notion, the suggestion. Some people will hope it's just a mere shadow of a fantasy that's never really going to come to any sort of fruition, but that he might be planning a book, a sort of a spare two, and we'll have to read it and then comment on it, Rupert.
Well, obviously, maybe he's energised by the success of his cousin's book, Prince Harry's Spare, which clearly has sold by the bucket load, but clearly has also put him into a bit of hot water, what with revelations of his private life et al. And other such interesting details that perhaps he didn't think were, well, he obviously thought were relevant to the piece, but actually made him a bit of a figure of fun. So clearly there is a good and bad side to the book from Spare. Will have plenty of supporters. But for Andrew, the last time he ventured forth thinking something was a good idea was his interview with Emily Matliss. And even after the interview, he walked out saying, oh, that went very well, and clearly didn't, because his troubles all began there in a very high-profile way. So I think he needs to look long and hard at the decision. If he believes he can clear his name with his book, but bearing in mind the scrutiny that it will come under, every sentence will be pored over to see if he is telling the truth. I think it may be worth just saying no. Certainly not in the short term, no, and probably in the long term, no.
I wonder if, though, there are facets of his life, Rupert, that might interest and fascinate people. For example, he was always said to be the Queen's favourite child. Possibly not least by himself. He probably described himself as that, I don't know. But I wonder whether people would be very interested to find out about his relationship with his late mother, his relationship with his late father. They might be interested to find out about his naval career. They might want to know about how he fell in love with Fergie. They might want to know, if he were to be candid, the details of how that marriage very swiftly fell apart, how he felt when she had an affair with her financial advisor who was sucking her toes. You know, but people might like to know, when he was called Air Miles Andy, Randy Andy, and all those other things that he's been called, some of them even less flattering. And also, they might really want to know, I must say, I quite want to know this. I am quite fascinated by this. I'm not very interested in any of the things I've just said, but I am quite interested in the bit where he might tell you honestly, I bet he wouldn't, but if he did, about why he and his ex-wife continue to live in the same place and have for several decades after their divorce, because most people can't wait to get shot of their ex-spouse when they get divorced. And the two of them seem to just rumble along. I mean, that might be interesting. People might like all that.
Well, yeah, it is a very interesting dynamic. And, there are lots of sort of theories possibly out there, but they do seem to be mutually compatible for each other and supportive of the children. And maybe there are some very simple things. They've managed to have one of those divorces. They couldn't actually be married, but actually are quite good friends when they're not married. And, we can see that that's probably quite a good dynamic.
Yeah.
And yes, there are some interesting things that have happened in his life, and he's a member of the royal family, and you've alluded to them. But unfortunately, he can't skirt away from the biggest problem that he's got to talk about, which is his relationship with Ghislaine, Maxwell, Jeffrey Epstein, and all that's gone on around there. That's the bit that he has to tell the truth about. The other stuff, his time in the Navy and perhaps how he fell in love with Fergie and all that stuff, relatively straightforward. And yes, he was a playboy back in the day. Well, that's fine. And his status within the royal family has given him a gilded life. But actually, it will come down to what the point of the book would be. Can he clear his name of all these allegations that have been levelled at him, which, OK, and he's paid $12 million to not go to a private hearing. So that's the bit that we all want to read. And that's the bit that he has to tell the truth about, and that's the bit that might cause him problems.
You see, I wonder if any of us really do want to read it. I think we think he had his opportunity to do his best to clear his name or state his case or be honest about it during, as you say, the ill-fated Emily Maitlis interview. I mean, I don't know what else he could write that would differ in any way from the I don't sweat Pizza Express at Woking story. I don't remember having my picture taken with that woman. I don't remember that woman at all. I was really friendly with Ghislaine and not really with Jeffrey. I went all the way there to tell him I didn't want to be friendly with him anymore. That's the kind of guy I am. I fly all the way to New York to tell someone I'm not going to be friendly with. I'm not going to be friendly with them. And while doing so, I don't sweat, or whatever he said. We all heard it. It was an absolute torrent of embarrassing nonsense, most of it, wasn't it? And I wonder what else he could possibly say, because if we're supposed to believe that what he said there he meant sincerely and that was the true version of it, and we are supposed to think that, he couldn't say anything else. And if he can't say anything else but that, we've already heard it. I wouldn't want to pay any money to read it again, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And, you know, he's been hoisted by his own petard. It's as simple as that. And his arrogance has caught him, you know, in this difficult situation. He thought he could ride this out and believed his status and everything would see his reputation being restored. But no, no one wants to touch him in any sense at the moment, to have him back in charity work and everything. So look, he's only, what is he, 62 now, I think, or 63. So relatively young man. There's still plenty of time for him to have an active role. But at the moment, that's just not going to happen. And the book, I don't think, would restore that, because he can't deviate from the stories that he's already told. And that's going to be his big problem. Because if he suddenly says, well, actually, I am a sweater, well, then what are we going to believe? You know, and I didn't actually go to Pizza Express. I don't know. I mean, I just pick out two of the high-profile examples.
Do you think that one of the motivation, the primary motivation for writing such a book, if indeed he does, is money? And is he needy enough, impecunious enough, Rupert, to actually have to do something he might not necessarily really want to do for the money? Or did the Queen leave him money? Is he wealthy? Does he really not need to do something like that for the cash?
I think he probably likes the money. He likes the status. And clearly, the King is taking a pretty dim view to what's going on and is saying, right, you've got to pay your way. So it's no longer just a series of grace or favours. So in many ways, he has to try and find a way of earning some money. He's no longer a working royal, but as a working royal, obviously, you are entitled to some funds to carry out your duties and to maintain a certain lifestyle. But that is no longer the case. I think one of the other things you might actually consider just now is restoring, making sure that he tells the truth. For his daughters have always stood by him, and maybe this is a way that he can further, you know, enhance in the eyes of his family that he is an innocent man. But I think it's a long shot. But money, I think, is important to him. He does like it. He does like the status of his position, and that's been his problem, because I think his arrogance has got him into this situation, believing that he is, you know, the one and only. And unfortunately, that arrogance has caused him to be in this very difficult position by thinking, oh, I was helping Jeffrey Epstein. Well, he didn't think. Perhaps he needed a bit more of listen to other people, might have actually ensured that he didn't get himself in such a pickle as he is now.
Right, let's just move on to another story. Let's talk about the late Queen's right-hand woman, Angela Kelly. She has a particular nickname, doesn't she? AK-47. And she's a Scouse docker's daughter, but she was so close to the Queen that they used to watch TV together, didn't they? And Angela used to wear her shoes in for her, so that when Her Majesty finally actually had to wear her shoes for a royal occasion or event, they were comfortable because Angela Kelly had been wearing them for months in advance. I mean, they were incredibly close. So what's about to happen to Angela Kelly now?
Well, it appears that she might have to leave her home, that she thought she was going to have a sort of grace and favour for life because of her close relationship and her working relationship with the Queen, and a very important time, and probably during COVID and everything. You know, AK-47, as she is dubbed, as you alluded to there, clearly is quite a force character and upset people as long away. And maybe she upset one or two members of the royal family. And, you know, that's one of the things that Harry said, that when he went to see the Queen, that the right people were advising her. And maybe there was some problems with her advice to the Queen around Meghan and tiaras and things. So there's all sorts of rumours and sort of suggestions.
Yeah, but Harry's not in charge of this, is he? So if she teed off Meghan by refusing to produce the tiara for Meghan to try on at the right time, as Harry says she did, that wouldn't have any bearing on what's going on now. This would be the decision, wouldn't it, of the King? So you wonder why the King, who is so much mourning the loss of his mother, and obviously clearly loved her very much, why would he want to send her great confidant and close, as she said, friend at the time, packing from her grace and favour apartment? Why would he not want to honour his mother's wishes and leave her there?
Well, there is a question, and that's only for the King to answer, as to what is his relationship with Angela Kelly. And clearly she's been honoured in the awards that came up, but some people said that they expected her to be sort of have a bigger title than she actually got. So it really, clearly, maybe people felt that she sort of perhaps overstepped her mark and her importance. And those allegations have also been levelled at the King with his relationship with Michael Fawcett, that someone got a little too close and has compromised the King with those sort of cash in the bags scenarios. So, you know, the royal household, you know, sometimes the people get round and they get beyond their status at times and their and maybe that's what the King feels. Now, I don't know. I've never met Angela Kelly, so I can't actually say whether, you know, what the problem is. But clearly, the King is looking at all the accommodation that is currently being used by, whether it be members of the royal household and indeed members of his family, to try and make it more prudent. Now, does eventually they come to some sort of compromise that she can stay? Maybe. But at the moment, she may be house hunting.
All right, and the final royal story today is about coronation killjoys. And this is about a threat to street parties. And I remember, you know, the Silver Jubilee, 1977, street parties everywhere. Remember, we had one in our street when I was growing up, and how fun it was and how lovely it was and how everybody talked about it for years afterwards and all of that. So what are councils going to do this time around?
Well, some councils, and you might actually say, because it's going to cost money, and a lot of councils are cash-strapped. And maybe some councils actually feel, well, we can't actually afford to do this because we've actually got to put money into, whether it be schools, you know, whatever, and maybe pay for teachers, whatever, all sorts of different reasons. So there may be that. But, of course, we are in a sort of health and safety time. So it is probably, there's more bureaucracy involved. And that may be the element that's at it and causing the problems for people just to have a spontaneous street party. You probably can't do that anymore. I mean, I remember 77. I've still got in my village, we all got a silver coin somewhere, which is in a desk somewhere.
Surprised you haven't got it about your person right now. Surprised you don't take it with you wherever you go, Rupert, for goodness sake.
Well, it's worth absolutely nothing, but we were all given them. And, you know, very nice it was too. And in the village I lived, we had a party to celebrate the Silver Jubilee. But I mean, obviously, back in 1953, there would have been huge street parties, the length and breadth of the land. It was a very different era then. And remember, it was coming out of a post-war era. And the point of the coronation then was to actually bring Britain into a new era and come away from the sort of post-war gloom and sort of rationing and everything that was going on. That this heralded a new dawn for Britain. Well, we're in a very different set of circumstances with the new king. Constrained circumstances is one. And so parties, you know, just as, you know, President Macron has decided that he didn't want the king coming to the Versailles last night, it's the optics. So councils have to justify the money they're going to spend. So it's a difficult act, but I'm sure a lot of people will say, well, they are being killjoys. But I'm not. It's a difficult one for various councils to navigate through in this modern era of health and safety, etc., and red tape.
Rupert Bell, thank you very much. Always a pleasure.